अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to another episode of Hafta from the 4th of April, Thursday. We are recording this at 3 in the afternoon. And in the current environment of things changing very quickly, it is likely many things will change by the time you hear this podcast, which means many people may join the BJP, as has happened over the last week or two. I would just like to remind you all before we start that we have an NL Sena project, but not one, several. Like, we take no ads from any governments, which is why you'll see all our banners are clean. We don't have ads of every state and central government and Modi ji's face. We don't take Adani ads, Ambani ads, or any ads for that matter, because we depend on you. So do contribute to our election coverage fund. The News Minutes team and News Laundry's team will be covering this election together. And we have one very special surprise reporter who will also be joining this team. You have seen him for many years, over 20, on a television channel. And we have hopefully convinced him to join our team for this election coverage. And all this will happen with money that you contribute, not government or sarkari or corporate ads. On that note and on that appeal for you to step up and hold the line and make sure democracy is protected and not bought over by big money, I will introduce the panel to you. In the studio with me is Raman Kirpal.
Hello.
Editor-in-Chief, and our Managing Editor, Manisha Pande.
Hello.
Joining us on Zoom is a former election commission superstar, and he has been here before, and you have read his recent piece, which is in the link below. It is The Empire Cannot Be Silent in the Indian Express. He is the author of India's Experiment with Democracy, The Life of a Nation Through Its Elections. The link to that book is also in the show notes below. He was the 17th Chief Election Commissioner of India, Dr. S.Y. Quraishi. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for making the time again. We really appreciate that you are available to talk to News Laundry. Otherwise, most people don't think it worth their time to come and meet us or talk to us. So we really appreciate that.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be invited. I'm a great fan of News Laundry. Let me tell you that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. See, even such accomplished, great people appreciate us. So those of you who are watching, do support publicly funded journalism. Before we get into the discussion, and election is going to be a big part of it, thus our wonderful guest, Manisha will fill us in on the headlines that transpired this week.
On Sunday, the India Alliance came together in a show of strength at the Ram Leela Maidan in Delhi. This was principally to protest Kejriwal's arrest with the message that anti-BJP forces need to unite to save democracy. Sonia Gandhi, Sunita Kejriwal was spotted on the stage together. In fact, that gave us the image of the event, I think, seeing them together. Tejasvi Yadav, Priyanka Gandhi also spoke among other leaders. A day later, Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan said Arvind Kejriwal's arrest is a lesson for the Congress who led the attack against Delhi government when it faced corruption charges with regard to liquor policy. He's been making these statements because
Congress is
they are facing off against each other in Kerala. He's also
opportunity go to take a dig.
He scolded Rahul for contesting from
and technically he's right.
On Tuesday, AAP Rajya Sabha MP Sanjay Singh was granted bail by the Supreme Court 6 months after his arrest by the ED. This is again in the Delhi excise policy case, although the court said that this is not to be taken as precedence. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said the DMK did nothing to safeguard the state's interest when Katchatheevu Island was ceded to Sri Lanka in 1974. The chronology of this was basically that Tamil Nadu goes to election in the next 2 weeks, first phase. They need an emotional issue. Anna Malai makes one, who's the BJP leader there. He's fighting from Coimbatore, files an RTI. That RTI response appears in Times of India, and then all anchors pick it up saying that Indira Gandhi gave away our sovereignty to Sri Lanka. This is not the truth, and it's hides a lot of the things that treaty
very well
was
orchestrated,
all about.
I must say.
And we can talk about this in detail as we have a guest, in fact, who's going to be talking on this. On Sunday, China released a fourth list of 30 new names of various places in Arunachal Pradesh. This is amid Beijing's stepped-up assertions in recent weeks to re-emphasize its claim over the Indian state. In response, we have unleashed Suresh Chavanke, who's posting the Chinese premier's face as a monkey and saying, we'll call Beijing Bajrang Nagar or something like that. Soft power. The Supreme Court on Monday issued a notice to the Election Commission on a petition seeking tallying of all VVPAT slips to verify votes cast through the electronic voting machine. 8 months after NCP leader Praful Patel, along with Ajit Pawar and other party leaders, joined the NDA, the CBI has filed a closure report in the Air India Indian Airlines merger case. In fact, Express had a very good investigation this week, where they said 23 out of 24 opposition leaders who joined the BJP and had charges of corruption against them have been washed properly, and all the cases have gone cold.
And in case you don't remember, there was this one big story when Praful Patel was Civil Aviation Minister. His daughter, also IPL related, his daughter wanted to fly some guests and she just changed an Air India flight from where it was supposed to go to where she wanted it to go. And there was a major story regarding this. This is the same man.
Jailed gangster turned politician Mukhtar Ansari died on Thursday night after he suffered a cardiac arrest in Banda prison in Uttar Pradesh. The Tamil Nadu government has moved the Supreme Court against the central government for allegedly not releasing relief funds for damages caused by the recent floods and cyclone Maichung. Meanwhile, observing that there's a recent trend of governors getting involved in litigation for not assenting to bills sent for approval by state governments, Supreme Court Judge B.V. Nagaratna said they should act in accordance with the constitution. It's quite embarrassing for governors to be told to do or not do a thing, she said. And the Supreme Court again made headlines when it slammed Baba Ramdev and Patanjali and said that you show no remorse. And
they said that they are not happy with their apology, so they should come up with something better.
And why they shouldn't be contempt proceeding.
I think they said
Baba Ramdev looked really mute and...
No, but his security twisted the arm of that reporter who was asking when they went out.
Ramdev ji, आपने सुप्रीम कोर्ट में झूठ क्यों बोला? अरे हाँ ठीक है आप हाथ तो छोड़ मेरा ऐसे नहीं कर सकते कुछ कर नहीं रहा हूँ सर कुछ कर थोड़ी रहा हूँ आप हाथ ऐसे पकड़ थोड़ी सकते.
I think all these babas have been shown their place and how really tucha they are. You know, even in Sadhguru, you ask him an uncomfortable question, they are telling us to be calm. They cannot remain calm if an uncomfortable question is asked. So it would be wonderful to have an interview with these guys if they actually have the courage to give an interview.
At least 7 people died and nearly 730 were injured after an earthquake struck Taiwan on Wednesday. An investigation by rights group Access Now and Global Witness has shown that YouTube in India is failing to implement its policy on preventing misinformation related to elections from getting published on its platform. Quite a disturbing piece this was. In fact, Newslaundry's carried it also, with some of the election ads were very inflammatory, like don't let a particular community take over. So it was...
Also, as we are recording this, the YouTube channel of platform called Bolta Hindustan.
Sham Miras, I think.
It has been taken down. And all these channels that are being taken on YouTube channels, I don't understand the message that goes from YouTube, and I quote is, we have received a notice from Ministry of Information and Broadcasting directing blocking of your channel available at the URL pursuant to Rule 15.2 of the Information Technology Intermediary Guideline and Digital Media Ethics Code, Rules 2021, read with Section 69A of Information Technology Act. The notice itself is confidential, so we are unable to share it with you at this time. So no one knows exactly why that thing has been taken down.
That's the message going to everyone.
It's just bizarre.
The ditto message.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel deeply regrets its strikes on an aid convoy in the Gaza Strip that killed 7 workers for the charity group World Central Kitchen. And we're going to have a regular feature now till elections every Hafta, where we'll talk about the adla badli in politics.
Yes.
Who's joining who's left who.
Because it will continue till, I think, polling will start.
Yeah.
So last week, Vijender Singh, the famous boxer who was with the Congress and contested 2019 on a Congress ticket, has joined the BJP. Gaurav Vallabh, very effective spokesman of Congress, has left the Congress and joined the BJP. Ajay Kumar Nishad has left the BJP and joined the Congress because he was not given a ticket from
Muzaffarnagar, you said?
Muzaffarpur.
Acha, that is in Bihar.
He has switched and joined the Congress. So there will be many such adla badlis happening. So we'll keep you posted.
Our listeners should listen to the response Vijender Singh gave though for joining BJP. It was just remarkable.
राहुल गांधी कल वीडियो रिट्वीट कर रहे थे जिसमें मोदी जी का मजाक उड़ाया जा रहा था. अब सवाल उठ रहा है कि बॉक्सर का मन बदला क्यों 24 घंटे में.
वो कहते फिर मैं सो गया, उसके बाद फिर मैं एकदम उठा तो मेरे को लगा कि नहीं यार आप गलत कर रहे हैं, आप गलत प्लेटफॉर्म पे हो, तो आप भारतीय जनता पार्टी में आइए और यहाँ से आप कहते हैं आप सही दिशा में जाएंगे, इसलिए फिर मैं भारतीय जनता पार्टी में आया.
People are jagoing. This is Jago.
Jago.
But I would just like to, because we are not going to discuss this in detail, but it's important if those are listeners who know, great. If you don't, the strikes that killed the convoys on Gaza Strip from the World Central Kitchen, it is now clear that it wasn't accidental firing. Those particular vehicles were targeted because there were 3 vehicles which were some distance apart from each other. So it wasn't like one bomb fell and blew up all 3. They were too far for one. So each of them was targeted by a separate strike. So the intention was to strike that vehicle. And for the first time, Israel is on the back foot and they've had to apologize. But I think
it won't be the last. They'll have to apologize for a lot.
The world is done for it, man. Netanyahu deserves to. He deserves the worst punishment for war crimes. I think he's done. Anyway, so on that note, let's get into the discussion. I'd like to start with the whole VVPAT thing, Mr. Quraishi. Sorry, Dr. Quraishi. I should not say Mr. Quraishi. Dr. Quraishi. So, just one thing, because I've been discussing this with a journalist / researcher who's actually doing a longish paper on VVPAT machines, EVMs. Because there's so much of, every now and then a balloon hota hai ki bhai, they are not credible. And you have in the past on Hafta only said that it is, when you were saying that if they want to do one state, one check, they have to make another 2.5 lakh machine. You had explained why, how, etc. One of the things that was said to me is that there should be nothing breaking the information that goes from the where you press the button, that panel, to the where the data is stored. The VVPAT should be on that side. That means on the right of where the information goes. So you press the button, that is marked in that data storing machine, and then the VVPAT can cut the slip and drop it into the box below. Right now, the VVPAT has come between the two, whereas there should be no break between the two. Does it matter? A. B. Is it true that the earlier VVPAT machines, when the light would go off, you'd see what has been printed and cut? The new ones, when the light goes on, you don't see what has been printed and cut. You just see a light go off, but you don't see what has been cut. Is that true?
Well, I don't know about the second part. I haven't read about it, but about the first thing, that the VVPAT has been brought between the ballot unit and the control unit.
Yes.
I find it very illogical and not acceptable, because VVPAT and the CU and the BU have been operating together for the last 20 years. They're all linked. You press a button, the vote goes into the control unit and gets recorded. Now, something which is already working, and it is all in the field, in the districts, in the constituencies. How will we bring a VVPAT in between, and why should we bring it in between? In fact, VVPAT was introduced by me in 2011 when I called an all-party meeting in October 2010, when the controversy was at its peak. And that was the time when the biggest critic of EVM was the BJP. They wrote a book called Democracy in Danger. Do you remember that?
I remember.
So, and when we called this all-party meeting, Chandrababu Naidu was leading it. Other top leaders of other parties were there. And they suggested, Chandrababu specifically said, he said, I'm not saying that EVMs have manipulated the results in the past, nor am I saying that they will manipulate in the future. All that we are saying, it doesn't have transparency. And what does it mean do you mean by transparency? When you press a button, the vote goes into the machine. Where exactly it is going, you really cannot see physically. And only Election Commission explains, and there are lots of procedures, and there are 3 mock polls, everything, all that detail. There's no doubt it goes to the right place. Now, when we introduce the VVPAT, it is common sense. I'm not a technical guy, but a common sense that same button, there will be a parallel wire going to the VVPAT. Once the ballot unit is pressed and says vote for A, the vote gets recorded, and here is the same instruction goes to VVPAT, and it shows you that candidate and prints that slip.
Right.
So therefore, there is absolutely no question. It is a very, very foolish proposition if somebody has done it or somebody is thinking about it, that it is coming in between.
Right.
And the reason why they are saying it, that has a point. They say that our defense of EVM was always that it's a one-time programmable read-only chip. Once you have programmed it, it cannot take any other instruction. And to give you an analogy, you have a calculator. In last 10 years, when you say 2 plus 2, it will always tell you 4. You cannot program it to give you 2 plus 2 is 5. You cannot, because it is pre-programmed. Now, whereas VVPAT has to be programmable, because the program is decided on the a day before the nominations start, because that is actually the day when the nominations finish, scrutiny is done and people withdraw their candidature.
So when you have the final list of contenders,
when the final list of contenders is known, that has to be printed, that has to be programmed on the VVPAT. So therefore, linking it with CU and CU controlling it doesn't make any sense. There is no need for it. So these are parallel activities. And secondly, the fact that they have been working fine, according to me, lakhs and lakhs of chits from this VVPAT have been compared with what is recorded in the CU, and they have all tallied, except for 1 or 2 cases where some technical reason which was explained.
Overall, the data is overwhelming that the tallying of the VVPAT has been consistent. There has not been any significant or discrepancy that can impact any election in any way.
Absolutely. But you know why the problem started? In 2019, for some silly reason, some election commission officials said that, the people wanted the data. It will take some time. It might even take 6 months. What stupidity is it? The data has to tally that very day. When you press the button at the end of the polling day, if there are 650 votes polled, the machine records that, it. But the day when you open the machine to show the results, the first thing it will show you, look, my number is so-and-so, and I have 650 votes in me. And before it starts telling you the detail of candidate 1, candidate 2, to say that the data will take some time. What was that nonsense? I don't understand. And that is what has created all the confusion. Right. That should have been explained by the Election Commission. Why was it not explained? I don't really know.
Right. And I understand that there is a convention of not commenting on one's department going forward, but I will risk a question. Are you satisfied with the way the Election Commission has been picked and the objections or the concerns of the Chief Justice being removed from that? Does that bother you?
Well, it bothers me only to this extent that the collegium, which consisted of Chief Justice, has been working for the last 10-15 years for 3 other posts: CVC, CIC, and Director of CBI. Not once the decision of this collegium has been questioned. That is the benefit of a collegium. Now, and not once has the Chief Justice objected to the Prime Minister's selection, whether this Prime Minister or the previous Prime Minister, not once. He has not proved to be difficult for the collegium. And at the same time, because of his presence, there was credibility. Now, this collegium, according to me, is a joke. Now, Prime Minister and his cabinet minister, do you think any cabinet minister has the guts to disagree with the Prime Minister? And therefore, it is already 2-1. Before the committee meets, it is 2-1. The leader of opposition has been marginalized. It is optically horrible. And why it was done, I don't understand. Because if Chief Justice had continued to be in the collegium, there would have been no problem. And maybe this same collegium, with the Chief Justice, would have selected the same 2 gentlemen. Because there is nothing wrong with these 2 gentlemen, because they fit the bill, they qualify, there have been secretaries to the government. And to reach the level of secretary to government, it takes a lot.
Yeah.
If 100 people join the IAS after 30 years, 35 years, only 5 people make it to the top on the basis of their integrity and on the basis of their brilliant performance. They fit the bill. They are all brilliant people. As I say, Chief Justice would have chosen them. So there was no need to play with the optics. Actually, the first draft, which was introduced by the government 3 months before the bill was passed, had the correct collegium. Why was it changed on second thoughts? I really don't understand.
My theory is that the optics are this. I think Mr. Modi wants to give the optics that it is me who will decide everything. It is I, me, myself. But when it comes to the Election Commission and the schedule, how is the schedule impacting you, Raman sir, and you, Manisha? Your teams, I know, are going everywhere because I have just been sent the prospective budget for travel, and we shall have a chat about that later. But it's what, an 8-week schedule? Manisha, you're traveling. What are the
No, it's a very, so April, May to May. And I start traveling from 17th onwards, and we finish the first 2 phases. And then 3rd phase, I'll be back in Delhi. But yeah, reporters are going to be out from phase 2 to phase 7. And it's going to be gruelingly. Actually, one question we should ask Dr. Quraishi. Is this, there's so many people complaining of the weather. It's going to be hot. We're going to have unprecedented heat wave this year especially. I was talking to Dhanya, in fact, our colleague from News Minute, who said she was speaking to some candidates in Kerala and they sounded like patients. It was difficult for them to canvass because, again, there's like crazy amount of heat. Is there no better option than to have these elections in May? Why are we not changing it? It makes more sense even for voter turnout. More people are likely to turn out when the, in better...
Well, I know. In fact, this year, very hot summer is predicted. And last election, the elections were over by 21st of May. Why did they have to be extended to 4th of June? I really don't understand. In fact, the effort should have been to, reduce it and shorten it. And shorten it not only in terms of time schedule. One, you can advance early. You could have advanced 3 weeks earlier and finished 3 weeks earlier. Also, that is one thing I've been saying, although I've always defended the phases, because that was the need of the time to save lives. Because every political party demands that we bring paramilitary forces, which is Central Armed Police Force technically. So, and since they are from outside, they cannot be influenced within the state. Now, because that force was limited, so that limited force was circulated from one phase to the other. So now,
we don't need
more forces, if they are made available, we should do it in one phase. Because in the age of social media and explosion of conventional media, lots of rumors, fake news, hate speech, that is creating more damage than it is solving problems. Therefore, the time has come for us to reconsider phased election, come back to a single phase, and it is possible. It is doable to finish it in 30 days, 30 to 33 days.
In fact, we were noticing that the battleground states are through the 7 phases, which is, my conjecture is that Prime Minister Modi would like to pace it out. Every phase, he'd like to go and give his rallies and speeches.
West Bengal, Bihar,
but you're right.
Maharashtra.
Like, if there isn't an issue of of violence in large number of constituencies, you don't need phases.
But Dr. Quraishi, I mean, I pity the people who are contesting from Seeker. Gajak kahan se aati hai? Morena, even Amritsar, they'll be roasted. But is it because in March, which would be the best time actually for election, people can have picnics and go vote at the same time, spring, but since most polling stations are government schools and March is when the board exam happens, they can never do it in March. So it either has to be Jan, Feb or then October, November. Is that correct?
Yeah, quite right. Because March is the examination month and all the schools there are polling stations and all the teachers, most of the teachers are our polling staff. So at the same time, instead of the first phase being on the 19th of April, it could have perhaps have been on the 5th of April.
Right.
Of course, some people would say that, the noise of the campaign will disturb the students. So, well, there could be some trade-off.
That we are used to it. So I remember when there was this, I still remember that slogan, Taraju kiska hota tha in the 80s. There used to be, and those days, so no one gave a shit about, all these petitions that sound pollution or you kept trying to sleep. It was Aaju par na baaju par mohar lagegi taraju par. And it was to the tune of this song, Aapke Aa Jaane Se by Govinda. And they had this song of this. And so we've studied through that and we did decently well. I mean, but
yeah, it's going to be a very grueling time the next 2 months, especially because of the heat, like I said. and also the length and breadth of what we aim to cover this election, which is quite unprecedented. I think this is our biggest election coverage yet in Newslaundry.
Also, if I may add, we also had 7 phases. We have been having 7 phases for the 3-4 elections, but the gap between the 2 phases was never more than 5 days, 4 to 5 days, because that is enough to move the forces. This time, the minimum gap is 7 days and maximum gap is 11 or 12 days between second and third phase. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why this phase. Of course, let us see what is the reason it will come out.
But Raman sir, I mean, any interesting battles that you are looking most forward to in this election?
I think the battlefield states are West Bengal, Maharashtra, Bihar. These
and
3 states, and Karnataka, yes, to some extent, yes, because Congress has just won over there. But in fact, when we were covering the state elections, the impression that we were getting that at the national level they still favor BJP, but yes, at the state level they want to bring in Congress.
Which brings me to favoring the BJP. Yesterday and day before were 2 days. Sanjay Singh having been given bail. The following reasons are the ones that are being speculated. How come ED did not oppose bail? Otherwise, they oppose bail each time. So apparently, the case, as Manisha in the last Hafta had very clearly and eloquently explained, that it is such a weird law that you don't have to have proved prima facie anything. It is to you to prove that you are innocent, and bail is not given on merits of the case. It is all the principles of bail. Those don't apply here. So therefore, if a judge is going to rule on your bail, the law states that the judge has to be convinced that you have no part to play, which means the judge is ruling on the case, not just on your bail, and no judge will do that. So in this case, because I think the judge observed, and I will just come to that then I will have to get into the merits of... So then the ED did not want the judge to get into the merits, otherwise then Vijay Nair would be out, Arvind would be out, Manish would be out. They said we won't oppose bail. Then the judge won't get into the merits. So it was a strategic step back by the ED, because if the ED says, okay, get into the merits, then the judge will say, okay, let me get into the merits. Is there any merit to the case that there's a money trail? So they said, okay, forget that. So, isko jaane do, kam se kam, Arvind or Manish or Vijay to andar hi hai. So that was the strategic play apparently.
Got it.
But now him coming out, the rally and the desperation of the BJP is welcoming everybody in. I'm not sure that things are as hunky-dory for the BJP as we would ordinarily think, because the battle cry that Sanjay gave, and he's an extremely powerful orator. And we know that the Delhi Janta loves both Modi and Kejriwal.
Yeah, Dharam Sankat ho gaya.
In fact, I don't know if I still have the video. This former colleague of mine, he used to be the kitchen in charge in my early office. He sent me videos कि निक्कू सर हमारे यहाँ बस्ती से हम सब बस में भर के जा रहे हैं रामलीला मैदान. And he showed me videos of like hundreds of them, 8 buses.
It was a very big rally.
So I said, who has paid for the buses? I said, let me also get. Have you guys put together these? He says, no, we haven't put together these, but we are going on our own. The buses have been arranged for us by one of the local guys in the basti. I don't know who's paying for it, but we are going because we want to go. And he is, in fact, if you call him, his ringtone is Jai Hanuman Gyan Gun Sagar. He's a Hindu voter for BJP. But he went for that rally.
But Bajrangi bhai to Kejriwal the na.
But he went to that rally and said, I'm not going to. So I think what's happened has kind of, and by the way, while we are recording this, the High Court, the acting Chief Justice of High Court has struck down the Hindu Sena plea, saying that the LG should be asked to remove Chief Minister because he can't rule from jail. The court has said, let democracy take its course. So yeah, do you think it changes the dynamic in at least Delhi and Haryana in any way?
Dynamics in politics change every minute. I mean, like right now, with Sanjay coming out of the jail, it seems that AAP has got better perspectives. But after a week or so, you will find something else taking over. So I think it's very difficult to read the public behavior in politics. I think it changes every and there's no undercurrent. I don't see any undercurrent.
And also one thing that works against Kejriwal, I think, which is this, I think, large, broad Indian sentiment of not a lot of sympathy for anyone who's even accused of corruption, because of which Kejriwal benefited also. His rise was also on the sab mile hue hain kind of rhetoric. So I think public also, even if there's a little bit of taint on someone, they're like, haan, theek hai, corrupt hi honge, chodo. So I think that could kind of work against them. But like we discussed last time, it really depends on how the opposition is able to galvanize
May I
people.
come in on that?
Yeah.
For me, there is a serious matter of concern here. We have been noticing that when the prosecuting agency objects to bail is not given. Who is the deciding factor? The prosecutor or the judge? So this has become a normal practice. They always oppose. Their job is to oppose. And it is the job of the court to
decide
either accept their opposition or reject it. Here, if we are depending on the mercy of the prosecutor. If he doesn't want to pursue it, then the bail is granted. Otherwise, the bail is denied. This is absolutely wrong. It doesn't appeal to my sense of judgment.
In fact, I wanted to ask Dr. Quraishi, I mean, maybe you could weigh in on the big theme for this election that everyone seems to be talking about is free and fair. Like, how free and fair are these elections going to be? The opposition has asked these questions. You've had pieces in the foreign media also, like Financial Times this week had, an edit talking about how concerning it is, what's happening to the mother of democracy. I think Ashok Lavasa also wrote a piece in the Express saying that, there's time.
On that,
it's time for the EC to change certain things in the rule book. Is it even possible for EC to address what's happening today in terms of jailing of opposition or freezing of accounts or the capture of media?
But before you answer that question, Dr. Quraishi, I'd just like to include our next guest onto the panel, if you don't mind, and then you can please proceed with the answer. Also joining us today, because we will later on in this show be discussing this whole Sri Lanka having been given a strategic island that is 1.6 kilometers by 300 meters. Mujhe de do. We can set up the Newslaundry winter office over there.
Wahan pe kuch nahi hai. It's strategically we did a good thing giving it away.
But anyway, we will see that. So, before Dr. Quraishi answers that question, I would like to welcome our next guest, Professor R Manivannan. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for joining us. Dr. Quraishi, of course. And your introduction is you are Professor and Head of the Department of Politics and Public Administration, University of Madras. Prior to this, you taught at Delhi University. For over 18 years, you're the author of Sri Lanka Hiding the Elephant, Documenting Genocide and War Crimes and Crimes Against Humanity. And your piece on the Katchatheevu issue, which appeared in the Express, is also in the links in the show notes below. And we shall talk a little more about that. We were discussing elections and related issues with Dr. Quraishi. And Dr. Quraishi was just about to answer Manisha's question on free and fair.
Level playing field. Idea
field.
Of level playing field.
Yeah, Manisha, obviously you have not read my article which was mentioned in the beginning.
Yes.
Because that answers your question. It is all about level playing field.
That's what he said.
And what is the role of an umpire? And I said, the laws are already there and Election Commission has acted in the past. In ensuring level playing field is our dharma. It is the keyword, buzzword. That is the first thing we are taught. And for level playing field is absolutely necessary for free and fair elections. And free and fair elections are a basic structure of the Constitution. Therefore, whatever it takes to conduct free and fair elections, we have to take steps. Election Commission has all the power. In this article which you missed, and I will not forgive you for that.
Oh, sorry.
Easily. But, I've argued in the past, because, we have another principle which I've mentioned there. What we follow is that something which can wait, must wait. Now, whether the arrest of the two leaders and the what was happening to the accounts of the political parties, the grand old party, the opposition party, whether it could have waited. One case is 39 years old, another case is 7 years old. Could it not have waited for 3 months? could the Sekhri case has been going on for months or a couple of years.
Sir,
could
2
it not
years.
have waited? So if it can wait, it
So the
has to
election
wait.
commission has the rights to has enough power and teeth to say that
Yes, indeed. If it can wait, it has to wait. Do you know, even the cabinet cannot bring up an agenda in its, what used to happen, they will pass some populist scheme and say that because of election commission, we cannot announce or implement it, but it was leaked out. So we said nothing doing. You will not even bring up an agenda before in the cabinet because it can wait. Whatever can wait has to
But
wait.
Dr. Quraishi, just one thing, and I just want to give context to this. Manisha would not know because she did not read your article, and that is unfortunate.
That is going to be my recommendation of the week to myself and to everyone
since
else.
I have read your article,
I have.
there is, you gave the example of Chief Minister Parrikar in Goa. You called him up. He was planned to induct one more member in his cabinet, and it would, disrupt the level fair and free and fair, etc. That it would be an incentive for whatever reason that in the middle of an election you're inducting this new person, etc. You called him up. He was very agitated. We're just telling the audience, those of you who like Manisha have not read the article, that Dr. Quraishi called him up and said that you should not be in the middle of this election inducting this new member into your cabinet. The chief minister got agitated. You had a word with him. Finally, and you said it's an advice. I'm giving you an advice that this is not appropriate. But sir, he heeded your advice. Do you think it's the same politics today? That's the question.
No, by the way, what you described it very well. But when he called me agitatedly, he said, this is my constitutional right to appoint anybody anytime. I said, yes, absolutely, it is your constitutional right, but it is only our advice in the interest of model code. And his statement, which I have quoted, was brilliant. He said, something like, I sacrificed my constitutional right before the sanctity of the moral authority of the model code. So for him, the moral authority of the model code was more important than his constitutional right. So that was the statesman-like behavior we expect from politicians.
Now, do you see those words exiting the lips of Yogi Adityanath or Hemanta Biswa Sarma or anyone else? Is what I'm saying. That was your job a lot easier because politicians are a lot more decent.
Well, politicians there are politicians of all kinds at any point in time. There will be many, even now, who would perhaps agree with me and with Mr. Parikar. That was the same time, mind you, when the law minister of the land was violating the model code and we charge sheeted him. We censured him. So same time, different responses.
Sure.
So that kind of different responses can be there all the time. I'm sure some politicians would, and I've got a lot of feedback on that Manohar Parrikar incident. People appreciating that. Because people should know that there was a good politician who was so principled. He sacrificed his constitutional right, mind you.
Dr. Quraishi, can you give some anecdotes, during your time about the role of money that, role that money played, in politics? So, but we need to know anecdotes because we also want to assess it. And this is money trail is the most difficult thing to, track. So if you have anecdotes, this is going to help us.
Yes. I will give you a few. When I took over as the CEC, in my inaugural press conference, I gave myself two challenges. One was voter apathy, particularly of the urban so-called educated people and of the youth and women. And second was money power. We set up two new divisions to address this. We had tremendous success in voter education, creating voter awareness. Every election after 2010 has seen historic turnouts higher than ever before in increasing. Money power, initially we had great success. In my first book, which was called An Undocumented Wonder, The Making of a Great Indian Election, in a chapter on money power, I have given 40 modus operandi of cheating. And for instance, one of them was you can't even offer a cup of tea to a voter. It's a bribe, criminal offense, IPC offense. But what people used to do, they will have in the name of some mundan or birthday or something or the other, fake party. So our observer went to some wedding party, 4,000 guests and liquor flowing, chicken flying, and he wanted to greet the bride and bridegroom. There was no bride and no bridegroom. It was a wedding party. But to think that we are smart and we have controlled this for future, no. Even now, the fake parties will be happening. Now there will be a rented bridegroom and a rented bride standing there with a printed invitation card. So these guys are ingenious. They come up. And the way, they used to carry money in ambulances. Now, we were very scared. If we stop an ambulance and a patient dies, people will pillory us. So we said, don't stop the ambulance, chase it to the hospital. Only after it reaches hospital, then check it. These kinds of incidents. That book has a full chapter on.
Very interesting. In fact, I'll definitely pick up that book. But this gives me an idea, Dr. Quraishi. And if any of the Shark Tank judges are watching, I have an idea for an app. Like Zomato puts food people want to eat and restaurants together. Uber puts people who want to take a cab. So if you're a political party and you want to have an event where you want to slimily, dole out dishes and parties, and if you are an individual or family who has an event but doesn't have the budget for it, come to our app. I will put together your event and the people. So there's a bride and groom and a party. Net. So this is a fantastic business idea, Dr. Quraishi. But let me just segue a little to Professor Manivannan. Professor Manivannan, you are an expert in this area, and your piece in the Express, which people can read, it is called The Many Truths of Katchatheevu. I may have mispronounced that no party wants to acknowledge. The strap is, current controversy should be seen as vote bank politics with little remorse shown for the loss of Indian territory or regard for the lives of fishermen and fisherwomen. So briefly, if you could just tell us, because this also become a huge election issue. And of course, if you have any thoughts about generally what the election environment is like where you are, we would be, interested and curious to see. But net, in brief, what is this issue and why do you think it is being raked up?
The Katchatheevu issue has been there for the last, since 1974. And in Tamil Nadu, and as far as at the time of Indian independence, this territory has always been part of India. But by 1974, the agreement between India and Sri Lanka results in ceding away of this territory, the first of all. But in my opinion, after the drafting of the Constitution, the first thing that in the preamble and the first Article 1, which is clearly states that the ceding away of a territory has never been part of the idea of the future of India, and we have no right to cede away any part or any region in the country. So this itself was a very big surprise, or even about major setback. This has been part of the Ramanathapuram king, or what you called as the Raja or the king of Ramanathapuram, and this is within the revenue region of the Ramanathapuram king also. So therefore, there are strong claims to say that this has been historically part of India. And then, we come to another reality by 1974 that the Indian fishermen have a kind of need to share the rights of fishing in that region. Subsequently, by 1976, and even the fishing rights for the Indian fishermen, and particularly the Tamil fishermen, was removed in the 1976 agreement. So it has been politicized, who is responsible, how did this part of territory being given to Sri Lanka? And then this has not been debated. Unfortunate thing in Indian politics and government is that, mostly everything is partisan. There is no kind of a state or
So if I were to just summarize, Professor, what you're saying is that, in your view, and I think that is what, can correct me from you have articulated in the column you've written in the Express also, that the ceding of this island was culturally, regionally insensitive. A lot more should have been, deliberated over. That should have been ceded, even when it was done by the Congress regime. However, there was arrests of Indian fishermen that used to go there, Tamil fishermen, they used to get arrested.
Yeah.
That kind of got resolved. However, the current dispensation, raking this up, has not given any solution. They've just raked it up as cynical politics. That's what you're saying. No one is really concerned, but
you're right.
We'll just come to that. But Raman sir, you were telling me upstairs the Just tell us about how this became an issue on prime time, who has not discussed how much of Indian territory China has taken or not taken. That has never made prime time, but this made prime time across channels. But it first broke without, attributing motive to any one reporter or journalist, but so that we are clear in court. But what was the series of events that made this huge discussion, considering till now no one has even spoken about this until just before the election?
Like Manisha said in the beginning, Annamalai, he had filed an RTI. So we got some information through that RTI. And
he filed an RTI with the
government. And then it gets into the hands of the Times of India.
And they do a story
and they come up with a second lead on the front page. It's a double byline. And it gives a small, thing that how it was seeded. I immediately sensed that this is going to be orchestrated. Why? Because Tamil Nadu is, going to, the elections in Tamil Nadu are going to happen in the first phase. So I saw that Bill Gates' interview with, Modi, where Modi gifted him everything from Tamil Nadu. So he was setting the tone, for BJP campaign for Tamil Nadu, by gifting out a pearl or stuff. Anything, all Tamil Nadu stuff. So now then, immediately subsequent to this, second day, I think the Bill Gates interview was the lead, and the second lead was this story.
Right.
So I immediately thought that this is going to be orchestrated. And immediately after that, we saw the BJP spokespersons, then the Prime Minister himself. He, spoke about it, and then it appeared in on
prime
TV, prime time.
It became a huge issue.
So it was very well orchestrated, and just for the elections, Tamil Nadu elections.
Right. Dr. Quraishi, if I could just come to you before I go back to the professor again. The RTI, I mean, if you have anything, to add to the specifics of this, fine. But an RTI across many ministries, we read articles all the time. You don't get an answer here. This goes into appeal. That goes into appeal. Should the EC also be weighing in? Because transparency is an important part of the democratic process, right? And if I don't get information that I should get on how my, funds are spent, just like the electoral bonds, the whole fundamental logic that the Supreme Court gave is that the voter has a right to know, right? So the voter's right to know is a function of the right to information, which is, so in that sense, do you think the CIC has kind of failed the country considering the pendency of RTI, the amount of rejections that happen? I think there's just one or two punitive actions taken, although the Act says that if the information is wrongly denied, 25,000 per day for the denial delay can be levied on the government official who didn't give information. I think this has actually, that order has been given only once. Just on RTI in general, and in this case in particular, do you have any thoughts?
Well, when we comment on an institution, we should remember it is the incumbent who matters. Same institution at one particular time. Suppose you're dealing with the government of India under secretary, and you have some problem, and he is helpful to you. Entire government of India is good for you. If he is nasty and corrupt, the government becomes corrupt. So it is you cannot blame the institution. The institution has all the power. Institution has exercised those powers in the past. Some don't, some do. Therefore, it's a matter of incumbent's attitude and the backbone, and his preferences, working style, whatever you have. So that is what we have to keep in mind. Coming to this specific issue, we cannot fault it, because even if some people say this is because of the election timing, but at the same time, citizens' right to know is sacrosanct. And if political parties are smart enough to dig out such issues and use them in the election, they cannot be faulted.
Correct.
So,
but this is where I think the level playing field matters, because all channels have picked it up and ran it as, Indira Gandhi's Congress basically gave Bharat Mata ka tukda away. But there has to be some crucial, of course, all government decisions can be criticized, even though, from Nehru to Indira to Modi to Manmohan. But you have to give full information that we didn't just cede one island. We also got in return a resource-rich maritime patch. south of Kanyakumari, over which Sri Lanka gave up its claim. And they said, okay, this is fully, now we recognize as Indian territory. This is the region which sustains livelihood in Kerala and Tamil Nadu for fishermen. And also very rich in fossil. And this, we have a very good piece on this by Nirupama, where she says that this year itself, Modi government invited oil exploration in this region. So it's not a surprise to the Modi government. I mean, clearly all our diplomats and everyone knows what happened in the 70s, who got what. So it wasn't ceding of territory. I think it was an exchange, and I guess you can say that you can question that decision or that, you know.
Professor, in your view, what is the cost-benefit analysis of getting the maritime resources versus giving away an island, which apparently is 1.6 kilometers by 300 meters? That's the dimensions of it, right?
At that time, I mean, at least that's what Nirupama says, at that time it was pretty barren and it wasn't seen as strategic.
Like, you know, anytime, sometimes something stands barren in the history. So we can't justify saying that, like, you know, that was barren at that time. And like, you know, a lot part of our country in different parts of this region have also been barren. We have not given down our claim. And secondly, about, like, you know, see, the maritime resources is like, you know, see, what happens to the population that relies on fishing in that region? That's the question.
Right.
And then, like, you know, Sri Lanka gave something back to us because, like, but the point is both are in dispute. What Sri Lanka gave and what Sri Lanka took, these two are disputed areas. So, like, you know, we can't just console. It's like saying, like, you know, you take half, I'll take half, and both of us are happy. But what have you traded is about the people and livelihood. And then, like, you know, that's more important, actually. Then, so what if I say that on both these territories we have a stake, and then we got only one?
Right.
And why would any country give away something without anything in dividend for them? And so what we gave up, not we gave away, we gave up the people. That's what it strikes me, actually.
So
people
when you say
relying on
when you say people, just so that, because I'm a little, is that in that island is not inhabited, is it, or is it inhabited?
No.
No, it's see, even about a very small people go to dry their nets, actually.
I see. Okay.
But it's an important access point and to go into the ocean line. And what they call the deep sea fishing activities,
right?
And then also, like, you know, it's a very high marine life is also there. But what today, like, you know, some of us are arguing about, like, you know, the potential of this exchange. Today, China is drying the nets there.
Oh, is that right?
So we gave it to Sri Lanka. And, like, you know, see, we have an agreement. We have to respect the agreements. And therefore, there is an agreement, including Nirupama Rao, and then, like, you know, Shiv Shankar Menon and many others argue that this is an agreement we have to honor. But I would like to ask you about, like, you know, see, if we have given an agreement, we also signed an agreement on Indo-Sri Lanka Accord 1987. None of the provisions of that accord has been honored by the Sri Lankan government. And then, like, you know, see, without any territorial aspect, there are political aspects are also involved. So how another country honors an agreement is also important.
I see. Raman, Manisha, do you have any questions before?
No, today, one former Sri Lankan diplomat, I think he was the defense minister also. So he said that it's very unfortunate that the issue has been raked up for political reasons. And maybe the present government will get some mileage. And he said going by the popular, you know, wave, Modi may win the election. But after that, whatever has come out of his lips now it is going to stay there. It's going to stay there. Now he said he fears that after they come back to power, now they are going to ask for the fishing rights over there. So there is an interview of this gentleman in the Indian Express today.
I mean, I think these days, at least with this government, they are not so self-conscious about saying stuff that they walk back on.
Amit Shah so many times in Parliament said Akshay Chinle aayenge.
Exactly. In fact, according to some strategists, you know, geopolitical experts and pundits, the entire aggression of China was because of Amit Shah's speech in Parliament. You know, that was what the provocation was. You know, whether you want to believe them or not is a different matter. But, you know, coming to, for example, when Modi said, "Ab ki baar Trump sarkar," and Trump lost. It is a completely foolhardy thing. No serious prime minister who understands foreign policy would do such a thing. But it did not, it's not like Biden.
Yeah, Biden is happily hugging
they've
him,
also been
yeah.
pretty soft on this. So I think we've come to an age where the transactional nature of politics has become so transparent that no one really gives a shit about the appropriateness of utterances anymore. So I don't think utterances matter at all, especially during political times. But my last question to you, Professor, is if this entire full information is made available that we got X in exchange of Y, there are three aspects which are central government. That is just how our constitution is, with the concurrent state subject, central subject, which is the currency, printing, etc., defense and foreign policy. This is going to be a foreign policy call. I mean, is it, I understand your sentiment that it is those people who are impacted, but will it inevitably not be a call of the central government and foreign policy in how should territorial areas and borders and strategic islands, etc., be dealt with? Isn't there an inevitability to that? Or is there a solution?
Yeah, in principle, you're right, actually. In principle, we are right. But if foreign policy is removed from the population and if foreign policy is not drafted on paper, and it has to be based on certain substantial realities of people itself, this is the realm of the foreign policy. And then the second thing that you are saying about the central government, and you take the case of West Bengal, and then whether in the East Pakistan case, and then in the Jammu and Kashmir region, and then our border issues with Pakistan, and this is not only the central call, but you are just it also evokes a lot of emotions in different parts of the country. So policies reflect, and then even in case of China, that we have lost territories, and we have not informed people the extent of region and territory occupied by the Chinese, but we keep negotiating with the Chinese, and then we don't fully inform the people also. Then on the other hand, then attributing to certain parts of the country, saying that these are sentiments. They are not sentiments, they are realities. They are realities of they are substantial number of people or population depending on livelihood and other issues. Then if you say, or by the opinion debate, the center should decide, but the center is hardly, if you have not going by any political statements of the former prime ministers and leaders saying it's a piece of rock and nothing grows there. That's what Nehru said about in the first time, the instance in 1956. And then subsequently, the Kabba Valley in the northeastern part in Manipur, and 56,000 square kilometer regions were given away to appease the foreign policy issues with the neighboring countries Myanmar, and to buy peace with our neighbors. Now, why do we give? India is, we all respect our constitution, and we are not by culturally an invading country, historically and culturally and politically. But we also need to defend our territory, and this is a kind of what you call a complementing aspect of our governance system. So when the state, and in the name of the center-state relations, the center regards certain parts of the country as highly sensitive parts, and defines the national consciousness on those centralities, and then undermines the national consciousness and reduces the national consciousness to very regional sentiment. And this is and calling that as a foreign policy is not fair.
You want to weigh in on this, Dr. Quraishi, before I have just one more little segue to talk about on any of the issues we've discussed right now?
No, not at all.
Okay, one, I get exactly what you're saying, Professor, but just one little, I don't know, I've heard many people say it, and I used to kind of consider it as a given, but when I started reading a little more about this entire, thing that has been created, and even politicians, that we are culturally we don't invade others. I'm not sure that's true. I mean, the Chola dynasty, even Ashoka, the Maurya dynasty, we did not want to cross the Himalayas because they were just so intimidating, but they happily invaded each other. Which is the islands where everybody goes for holidays these days?
Lakshadweep.
Maldives.
No, the other,
Mauritius.
where there is all those Hindu temples.
Oh,
What's it?
okay.
Cambodia.
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 Bali has,
I'm just not convinced of that, what you just mentioned. Is it?
Sure.
You want to qualify that?
No, I don't want to qualify what I said. I said, this is our consciousness. We don't invade others. And then, I definitely agree with you. These are historical thing. It's not simply right on me to say that, but when we are talking about what we are saying about in the modern or in the post-independent history, and historically, I totally agree with you. I stay on the East Coast. I know the impact of what Cambodia and the Southeast Asian countries, but where, much more than the political significance, the invasions historically, what you call as, in terms of going back and forth, we look at it, we see it today, even in the cultural sense, but not necessarily having an empire set up there. And so this is something what I had meant, but I certainly, I agree with your statement that all cultures, all societies carry some political myths.
Right.
And we are all human.
Sure.
And I guess in comparison to imperialist powers or say like Turks and all, we didn't go that far.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Professor, for joining us. Really appreciate it. Before we say goodbye to you, would you like to recommend any piece of writing or a book or an article or a movie or a series that would enrich the lives of our listeners?
Oh, certainly. There are many things. At least two. One book I would like to recommend is because we are in the middle of the elections. One is that Gal Lowry. That's corrupt practices at elections in India. It's a very interesting work. And then there's the corrupt practices at elections, actually. So, with all respect to the election commission in this country, and also, how our politicians, outsmart every other institutions and structures, some glimpses can be seen in this book.
Right. Thank you so much. And thank you for your time. And we look forward to more of your writing. And the link to your book is in the show notes, so our audience can click on that and check that out.
Yeah, wish you good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
So, Dr. Quraishi, before we wind up, just want to discuss a little more about elections. But before that, I want to remind our listeners, do contribute and ensure that our reporters have the resources that are required to report, because they will be traveling to several states. The News Minute, Newslaundry team together with one mystery surprise reporter that you have seen for over 2 decades on broadcast television will hopefully be a part of our team, only if we can afford to have another couple of people join us, and that is entirely up to you. So in the show notes, there is links to our NL Sena projects. I please recommend you click on that, and if you have others who you think would be happy to contribute to independent media, do click on that. And I would just quickly, I was talking about Praful Patel. This is from April 23, 2010, the India Times of India article. Headline is Praful Patel's daughter pulled out scheduled Air India flight for IPL. I quote, a Delhi to Coimbatore Air India flight IC 7603 scheduled to leave at 5:20 am on April 20 was aborted less than 12 hours before its departure to allow the aircraft to be deployed as a chartered flight for ferrying Civil Aviation Minister Praful Patel's daughter Purna Patel and some IPL players from Chandigarh to Chennai. And in fact, passengers booked on that flight were put on a Coimbatore-Mumbai-Delhi flight. 75 passengers were reassigned. It was a huge storm that caused, but now, of course, he's part of them, so it doesn't matter. So that's where we are. But Dr. Quraishi, काश मैं भी बोलता आज मुझे चंडीगढ़ में party, आज party चंडीगढ़ में, Daddy, just change that flight and just send it with me and my friends, we'll go party elsewhere. And Praful Patel says, हम तो देश के लिए काम कर रहे हैं. यार शर्म भी नहीं आती इनको, मतलब धेले भर की शर्म नहीं आती, मतलब टुच्चों की बारात. खैर. But Dr. Quraishi, elections in India are so enormous, they are so huge. When you were telling us earlier that from the time the final list is prepared is when the programming has to start, because then you know who all are on that list. So, give us an idea of the scale, because I know Discovery or someone had made a show on Indian election, and I remember watching it. I mean, I know it's going to be very difficult in like 5 minutes, but give us an idea of the scale, how many people you're dealing with. I mean, do you guys pull all-nighters when the election is like when it's supposed to start tomorrow? You know, like students for writing board exam, ki last 3 nights, there's no sleep. And then when do you get your first good night's sleep? After when?
Well, let me answer the last question first. After the results are out and our role is over.
Okay.
That is when we take rest. And otherwise, the scale, there is nothing, no exercise on earth which is of this scale. Not only that, this is the biggest election in the world. It is the biggest management event of any kind in the world. Because we have to reach 140 billion people to find out who among them are eligible. We give them the application, they fill up, we take the picture, we make the card, and 15 million people are all government servants, are our staff. The bureaucrats whom you contemptuously called as babus, they deliver a zero-error election every time when they come under us. And about the scale, imagine 90 countries going to election at the same time. That is India. We have more voters than all 50 countries of Europe put together, 53 of Africa put together. There are 54 countries in North and South America. I didn't even know there are so many countries there. All of them put together an entire Commonwealth. And even that is not enough. Every continent is one half of India. 90 countries rolled into one is India's election. And all the problems of those countries we have in India.
Those
and
also.
we deal with them effortlessly, smoothly. In fact, what happens is the electoral controversies or whether model code violation was attended to properly, or this, that, 2, 3, 4, 5 controversial issues take the limelight. But the scale, the magnitude and the teamwork which goes behind it, which was the theme of my first book, An Undocumented Wonder. And this was the name which I picked up from an article by a journalist friend of yours who was very critical of us. And I said, look, you know nothing. Go and see what we do. When he went to the field, when he went to DM Noida's office, and he wrote a brilliant article, 3 pages in Governance Now, which I've reproduced in the book. He said that is something which needs to be telecast live for the nation's confidence. So, all those things completely are sideline, or should I say, they're
उनको नजरअंदाज कर दिया जाता है उनको, but
बिल्कुल वो छुप जाती हैं. More using inspired by the word you used 2, 3 times, which I would not normally use, but again, something more sexy. So we are adored by the sexier things. The sheer magnitude. Harvard management case study, how we do it and effortlessly every time with zero error. Zero error means zero error. We were discussing Katchatheevu, for instance. Do you know there is a polling station which is 1,200 kilometers from India's mainland and only 85 kilometers from Sumatra in Indonesia? There also we have to give you as good an election as in Connaught Place of Delhi. And nobody talks about it. Nobody even knows about it. And how even one vote counts. As somebody had asked me earlier about anecdotes. One anecdote here about the importance of one vote.
Correct. Who went on foot? Eight people went on foot to let that one in the. It's somewhere in the northeast, right?
No, that was in Gir Forest, Gujarat. No, but then another story which I have mentioned in the book. In Rajasthan, Mr. C.P. Joshi was the candidate. He was the Congress president. And he would have been chief minister if he had won. He lost by 1 vote. When he was losing, he called up a returning officer. Hey, please, can you recount the postal ballots? Because they're physical. So 550, he said, all right. 20 minutes, it was the same result. He called up again. Can you retabulate the totals from the machine? Because that we do physically. There may be human error. We did that, another 15, 20 minutes, same result. He thanked and moved on. Right. So the side story here is, number one, that his career changed because of 1 vote. Interesting side story is his wife had not voted. So,
सर ये तो वही बात हो गई जो दिल्ली के ऑटो में लिखा होता है क्या व्हाट गैरों ने मारा नहीं अपनों ने मारा गैरों में कहा दम था हमारी नैया वहीं डूबी जहाँ पानी कम सा.
मैंने उनको सीपी जोशी साहब को फोन किया. मैंने कहा जोशी साहब ये हमने सुना है कि आपकी वाइफ ने वोट नहीं दिया. उन्होंने कहा ये फैक्ट है. उन्होंने कहा मेरी वाइफ और मेरी डॉटर कई टेम्पल चले गए थे जो जरा दूर है वापस नहीं आ सके. तो हमने इसमें से 3 लेसन निकाले. नंबर 1, every vote counts. Number 2, you can't take even your family for granted, particularly wife. Number 3, on the day of poll, the most important temple is the polling
station. Very correct. So I would like to get other 2 panels also favorite election stories. I have 2 of my favorite election stories are election related or polling related. One is when I went to shoot a show. This is for Discovery at Mysore, where the ink is made. ये इलेक्शन की जो इंक है वो मैसूर में फैक्ट्री है एंड apparently it is the only place where the ink is made. The chairperson of that has the formula of that ink so that it is done, and when he relinquishes it, it's in a safe over there. That keys to that is given to the next person who heads that. I don't know what it's called. So the factory that makes that ink, it's in Mysore. I'm sure you've been.
Mysore Paints.
Mysore Paints, right? And that ink is exported to many countries around the world because even they don't make that ink.
30 countries.
How many?
30 countries.
30 countries, right. And the second thing is, I've recently participated in a campaign, My First Vote. Because there's some misled people like, Dr. Quraishi is an accomplished, he's a senior man. Meri Sangat mein even he has started using bad language. but apparently this person I'd met who heads this youth organization around the world, they are running this campaign, My First Vote. In which they have many brand ambassadors. So you had said, could you please record your message and send? We want to share it. And I never realized my first vote is on camera. Can you imagine? And those days it wasn't so strict because back in 95, 96, 97, there were just 2 cameras, Doordarshan and Newstrack. There was no third news platform. So we were doing a joint production with the BBC, Newstrack and BBC for Doordarshan. And at that time, this thing in Lodi Estate, there was one place where and it was paper ballot. And things were very casual back then. They allowed the camera all the way in. So my piece to camera was, this is Abhinandan Sekhri voting and reporting. And then I put my vote in, thakak. And when I went back to office, I said, Nikku, lovely piece to camera, maza aa gaya. Today, of course, you can't take a camera right and you can't even take a bloody phone. But it was much better innocent times. And I remember, I've mentioned this when Sushma Swaraj was coming out, I asked her, what is going to be your priority? Because she was, I think, contesting. So she said, nursing my constituency. So I misheard as Narsimha Rao constituency. So I said Narsimha Rao. She just turned around, doubted me. Sunai nahi deta tumhe? Why will I say Narsimha Rao constituency? But what about your first vote? Or any favorite?
Now me, so I come from Noida, so I have a very cynical attitude towards my vote. I feel that my vote is never going to
Sir,
count.
we have to teach him. This is very wrong attitude. CP Joshi se seekho.
However, I have voted every time.
Very good.
Okay, but yes, I become cynical. But yet I vote. And yes, I mean, my days also as a reporter, it was very good. We had very easy access everywhere, unlike today. Today we don't have that kind of access, but earlier we used to have very good access, and we were able to cover. But as reporter, we are tuned to look at the wrong things that are happening.
Sure, and that is your job, and you should.
So that is why I would mostly end up counting those all. I think Dr. Quraishi has said it very rightly. It's a gigantic exercise.
Yeah,
and actually, when you go on the ground and you witness people voting, the cynic in you through the year who's pointing at issues, and God knows now we have so many issues by the institutions, it is kind of hopeful to see a lot of people come out, to see election commission enabling voters, old people being catted in sort of sometimes in like makeshift carts to come and vote. It is quite that cliche. I think festival of democracy is quite true.
No, absolutely.
When you're on the ground,
there's no doubt about that. There have been documentaries made on that. The only one thing is, and I don't think that's unique, and we'll let Dr. Quraishi have the last word on that. Dr. Quraishi, everything you said, much appreciated. The Election Commission has been an institution that has actually not kept pace with the deterioration of others, such as the media and much else. It has.
Media is very low bar.
But media has been an institution. But, remember, it was the same media that where all the editors, Arun Shourie, took out a protest march against this one's bill that was introduced, Rajiv Gandhi's. Today, you see how they are saluting, Modi. So, media though has, of course, deteriorated to a different level. But I don't know whether it's culturally that's true. The professor, the whole cultural generalization that I kind of objected to, I'm guilty of doing the same right now. But this overemphasis on politeness and, we are always, I think culturally we have no hesitation in jhaduing someone who is in a position of weakness and being very polite to someone who's in a position of power. For example, when you're influential and can afford a ticket, today I'm offered all the passes in the world for this concert and that. I can afford it. When I couldn't afford jack shit, no one offered me a pass. In fact, our co-founder Madhu was telling me the same thing. She was like, when I was young, I couldn't go here, there. Today, you don't have to buy tickets. People are sending you passes for such major events, like international events. Similarly, when there has been an indiscretion, or not just an indiscretion, a violation, why is the CIC, like that punitive action of 25,000 rupees per day that they can take, or the CEC, while I understand the logistical aspect, is that whole thing that, we will not go so far as to, like if I had done what Mr. Ravi did, the Tamil Nadu governor, I'd be in for contempt of court. Yeah? There's no question of me being given a second chance. Why is the fear of straight away, if you have violated, there will be punitive action? Do you think we need a little more punitive action by all agencies, especially the Election Commission?
Yes, indeed, we must use, because Constitution and the laws have given us the power, and the power is given to be used, not just for the record. So if we don't use the power, we are failing ourselves and failing the nation, failing the institution.
And why do you think it is not used enough? You think people just tend to watch out for each other at their own level because, senior bureaucrats and politicians socially know each other, they work. Is it a social thing?
Well, it's a question of personality. Everyone has his own style, has a strength of the backbone, the strength of the conscience. They vary. So there are various factors for this, and some people are, you may call them trigger happy, some you'll call timid. So there are all kinds of people, but I think we need to be assertive because the power is given to us. Election Commission particularly has been given the power. Judiciary has been given the power to exercise it, not to be pussyfooting, but to use it effectively. And when we have used it effectively, it has paid us dividends. We have become a global guru in elections. Hillary Clinton called our elections as a gold standard. So we have earned that reputation because of something which we might have done right in the last 70 years. So we need to be assertive, conscious of our power. There is no shortage of power. We need to use it. At the same time, not being trigger happy.
Sure. So thank you for that. Thank you for your time. Always a pleasure to have a conversation with you, Dr. Quraishi. We always learn so much and it is very satisfying, and also I do get some hope. But before we say goodbye to you, what would you recommend for our listeners and viewers?
If you don't find it embarrassing, I'm going to recommend my own book.
Of course.
Yes,
we
of
do
course.
that all the time.
For two reasons. One, nobody else recommends this. And secondly, this is indeed the best book. And I'm telling you, and I'm not joking, just because it is my book, it is a collection of my published articles. You discussed one of my articles,
right?
So where people discuss my previous articles, all hot topics of the election you wanted to know, you have ever asked, they're all here. Repeated articles. So it is a dictionary for me also. When you ask me to write an article on, say, simultaneous election, it is very easy for me. I pick up my book, read my previous 10 articles. The material is all there. I give you the 11th article in no time. So this is a good book. But in case, in this age of giving options, I give you the choice of a better book, which is called An Undocumented Wonder. It is written by a better author called S.Y. Quraishi. So this was written in 2014, updated in 2019 election. Here you can see the update. So, which is a totally different style. This is the evolution of election commission, historical perspective. And this is almost a textbook in half the democracies of the world.
So the links to both the books are in the show notes below. Do pick it up. Educate yourself about democracy. Inform yourself. And sir, you're saying? That's
if Manisha sends me her postal address with the phone number, I'll send it to her on the promise that she will read it and you will certify it.
Done,
yes,
sir.
Done, please.
In fact, and then we'll have a conversation about the book specifically. In fact, after elections are over, we should have a podcast specifically because we had one. Let's talk about
election commission. I was just going to say that.
So it's already on my notes here. I'm making notes even as we speak.
But we should do it during the elections.
But you're traveling, no? I'll do it then. Okay.
See, my investment has paid back.
Absolutely, sir. Always. Always. One should always try, persevere, and it does come around.
It does.
But thank you so much. This is not just a promise. This is Nikku ki guarantee that we will do a podcast on this. We will do a podcast on this. And if the team is traveling...
हम किसी guarantee को believe नहीं करते, सिर्फ एक guarantee को believe करते हैं.
Which is?
लेकिन कोई बात आजकल हम सिर्फ एक गारंटी
वो तो हाँ लेकिन चलो ठीक है
जोक सपाट आप बाकी मुझे वो भेज दीजिए मैं ये दोनों किताबें आपको भिजवाता हूँ आप जरूर इसे और इस पे तो आप लेटेस्ट डिबेट कर सकते हैं because all the hot topics of the past and future they're all here.
Done. This should be interesting. But thank you for joining us. Have a good weekend, sir, and we shall see you once we're recording this podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bye.
And on that note, before we go on to the emails, and there are many this week of critique, inputs, feedback, I'd like to remind you to please contribute because the expenses this month and the next month and the month after that are going to be significant at Newslaundry. And we cannot cover the election as robustly as we'd like unless you step up and contribute because we do not take any ads. So click on the link in the NL Sena below. Or just go on to newslaundry.com, click on the NL Sena button or just click on subscribe. If you're already a subscriber, get someone else to subscribe. But we need to have this growth of subscription-driven, of citizen-driven journalism so that one doesn't have to depend on big industrialists and government budgets.
Letters?
Yes, we only entertain the letters of those who are subscribers. So if you're not a subscriber, you can mail us. But we will not really read it here.
We have 18. Do we read all of them?
No, we can read a few. I read 2 of them are very, very good. I think actually
so let's read the very, very good ones.
We should send those as newsletters. हमारे newsletter लिखने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है. But we can send a couple of those. But we will read some and we'll keep some for next time. But you mail us at podcasts@newslaundry.com. I repeat, podcasts@newslaundry.com. Please keep your letter less than 150 words. Or you can click on a link in the show notes. That will direct you to a box that will open and you can give your feedback there and then. But only for subscribers. So Manisha, take it away, please.
Okay, so Anonymous says this is regarding the discussion on DU professors. We know that BJP has appointed VCs which have links to RSS. However, they seem to be packing all levels at DU with people aligned with RSS and not just the top level. It seems impossible to get hired as a faculty at DU if the candidates don't have any direct links to RSS. Highly qualified candidates with extremely strong research and teaching experience don't stand a chance if they don't come with RSS links. This is not limited to social science departments, but even pure sciences. Agenda seems to be complete institutional change which lasts for decades. In fact, the Sekhri school story this week was quite troubling, where they were
now Rathambra
and
is deciding the fate of the students.
And in fact, our colleague Prateek had done a very good story on the MP exams, where all of them were linked directly or indirectly.
Very good story. Excellent story.
N747 was jolted by comments of Anas, had been a staunch supporter of uniformity. I thought it was essential in front of law. But when Anas asked the question, my other beliefs came to the forefront. We don't expect everyone to wear the same size clothes. North Korea. Wink. Even in education, we go through the different exams after secondary school where a diversity of passing marks is allowed with scoring best of 5. Even in my professional work, I had been the first to show up in full beard in office back when it was not allowed, and my office desk is littered with tiny trinkets considered unsightly and unprofessional by some. Even though I was rebelling against authority in personal professional space, I could not understand why I supported UCC. Thanks, Anas, for strong views and even passionate defense. My opinion on UCC was irrational, not well thought out. Unity in diversity doesn't mean that we find common grounds and not enforce uniformity.
Which Anas is?
Anas Tanveer, who came on Hafta.
Oh, okay.
You weren't there for
I
that
wasn't
Hafta.
there. Okay, so if I could just quickly take it to that email that I thought was very articulate and very well expressed complexity. It is by Anonymous. 617 words, so I won't read all of them. In fact, we'll consider if we can send this as a newsletter. But Anonymous says, Abhinandan twice in the last couple of weeks suggested what seems to be deeply held conviction that quote-unquote Indians prefer to be ruled or have an inkling towards autocratic leaders, mentioned again last week with reference to the Pew Research study. I personally think talking about voters' political behavior and rationale through data-led research where things are generalized and broken down in numbers is a poor way to understand individual rationale, and a simple yes-no answer to questions will miss out the nuances, etc., etc. There is a distinction between autocratic leader and a dictator. I'm assuming these are being used interchangeably. Therefore, I would like to keep my point in relation to the word dictator. As regards to Indians wanting dictatorship, it seems to me this phenomenon has more to do with the communication gap due to one not having a common ground. In fact, later in the same episode, while discussing Sharia law, Abhinandan mentioned how each scholar brings his own interpretation on the table. Similar thing is happening with this whole dictatorship debate. Abhinandan's uncomfortability seems to be stemming from the way he is contextualizing a dictator as someone who rules in accordance to his own will and dominates others to submission. Whereas Manisha, I feel, is more attuned to how perhaps people are contextualizing a dictator, that is, as someone who can get the job done. This is the dictator, it seems to me, people are voting for rather than someone who would rule over them. And then, Anonymous has gone on to also say that if one really believes that in politics only things that matter is security and life's interests, and we only need a leader who can get things done, one would have no reason to reject a dictator. If anything, he is a perfect position to deliver security and get things done, as he will not be hindered by any intervention of different voices among his equals while striving to get things done. But it's an interesting, long letter about dictatorship and how people view it differently. So that was the one that I thought was interesting. And I mean, our debate about dictators last time, I think Anonymous has very well put together. Your definition, my definition of what you're debating is different.
Actually, maybe for one of the haftas we should get Hilal to also weigh in, and maybe in the run-up to elections we can, because I think it's interesting. We've been discussing this a lot. Voter choices, why do we vote the way we do? What do we think? Authoritarian dictator versus strongman. Could be interesting to get him. Okay, so Atin says, hi team, just wanted to highlight that most of the people in the media landscape and otherwise use the word ruling party. To me, this is wrong. We should use governing party. Abhinandan's been saying this since 2012. So, we agree. And we try, I think when we speak, I invariably end up saying ruling party. But I think we have an editorial policy to not write. It's governing party mostly. Says, continue the good work. I've been a subscriber since the beginning and listening and reading to NL since Dhobi Ghat.
Thank you, Atin. That's a long time ago. But like she said, since 2012, we had this that we will not use ruling party. But I think it slips out every now and then.
Yeah. Vinay Kumar says, I was looking into some current affairs news and found few appointments were closely linked with holding power from CAG, CBI, ECI and courts to and higher positions. This is how I guess there are less CAG reports and no action of institutions. Although there's been quite a few CAG reports that we've reported.
Yeah, but they don't get the play they used to.
In the media, yeah. That's true. That's very true. This suggestion, so he's suggesting that we should take
up CAG. In fact, we had one piece based on a CAG report a while ago. So I think about a month ago.
Yeah. CAG is a huge thing. If we have resources, CAG gives you a lead.
But you have to follow that lead yourself.
Right? And that takes real good time. But they definitely give us leads.
Anonymous says it's unfair to say that we didn't see it coming in 2014 on what's in store with Modi government. We already heard about Ishan Jaffrey case. Other cases where he completely controlled the opposition parties in Gujarat. Modi does nothing that is surprising. On Raga, I think it's courage to be bullied by the entire nation for over a decade and still be in the fight. He's the only politician who constantly spoke on Adani, Rafale, Regional parties have been successful in state elections. I think he deserves more credit than what he gets. Our nation has been hijacked by criminals who have extorted a lot of money, which makes them efficient. You give so many resources to Congress and see what they can do. Or maybe not, because with money, you also need a dead conscience to do what the government is doing. Amidst cry for a strong leader, I think there's space left for a compassionate democratic leader. Anonymous says, I want to share something with regard to your assessment of social media making it easy for nutters to find each other. I was not on any platform except Twitter, and I barely even logged into that. Recently, I had to for a work-related thing, and since I follow some people like Manisha, who sometimes criticize the country and the government, I suppose Twitter thought I'm anti-India. And in the For You page, I got exposed to vile, racist, anti-India stuff. And I even got to learn a new racist slur used against Indians. My God. I reported the account, but nothing happened for about 5 days, and the account continued to spew hateful diatribes and content against the country and its people. Just deleted my Twitter account for the sake of my own side. This is so dangerous,
Yeah, but this is
really
the
dangerous.
whole thing of social media.
And this aligns with what the Modi government wants to paint journalists as, who do whatever criticism they do. Hi NL team, thanks for all the reports. I've been following Hafta Charcha for the last couple of months. I was a subscriber a few years back and was not able to continue my subscription. However, I feel good to be back.
Thank you,
We're also happy
Manpreet.
to
This is
have
from
you back.
Manpreet. 3 cheers for Manpreet for coming back as a subscriber.
Questions regarding Abhinandan's comment. Something on the lines that we Indians are conditioned with hierarchy, and it comes from the caste system. Not sure if you put the responsibility of that on the people who still believe in hierarchy. I think it's not the failure of marginalized people who still believe in hierarchy and don't question power. It's collective failure of us, the privileged class, that they still live with the psyche of obeying people above in the hierarchy. Please provide more clarification on that. I love the work NL TNM do. I'm eagerly waiting for the joint election coverage. Actually, they are more subservient, the ruling
but
class.
Manpreet, I wasn't saying that the people who are marginalized are responsible for our being obsessed with hierarchy and obeying. Because of the caste system, everybody follows that. For example, and I give the same example each time. If you've ever really closely interacted with bureaucrats in an official position, the difference, there's always a difference in how we speak to each other. Like, for example, the way, I will speak to an intern is not how I'll speak with Raman sir. Okay? There is a difference. So, I'm not saying everybody's, but the difference is not like this. Like, for example, in India, it is acceptable the way I'll speak to a Darban who opens the door for me and how I'll speak with Prime Minister Modi. In one case, I'll be like, if you saw Arun Puri's behavior, it is not the behavior of anyone who has any shred of dignity or self-respect. And he's one of the, huge, stalwarts and, one of the top 0.1%. The same man, you see how he talks to someone who is way lower down in the hierarchy. मतलब एक तरफ तो आप पैर छू के you're literally घसीटing your naak, and on the other you are being completely disrespectful. I think that is generally a tendency of us as a people, and that extends across the social strata. And I've given this example many times on Hafta as well. The people who are cruelest to others are also the way the guard at our colonies, the way he will tell a BMW that doesn't have the colony sticker, आप यहाँ से नहीं जा सकते sir, आप वहाँ से घूम के जाइए, as opposed to someone who comes in a cycle. You see how he talks to him. We are obsessed with that. So it's everywhere, but the cause is the caste system, in my view.
Shikhar says, Mrs. Sonia Gandhi was the fulcrum that paved way for the success of Congress in 2004. It was all pre-election efforts. Sitaram Kesri was ousted much before elections by Sonia Kotri and made Congress president. Abhinandan in the last episode bulldozed on the basis of his NDTV stint. Listeners also have their understanding of events. Not only Nirja Chaudhary, but writings of Harish Khare, Komi Kapoor all testify Madam Sonia's contribution to Congress success. Are you from Congress? Because Madam Sonia is very specific Congress. No. So he says mandate is for her, and yeah.
So no, I would disagree with you, Shikhar. I don't recall any mandate being. Sonia can be, held responsible for getting the Congress flock together and, getting it as a power again. But that is structurally within the organization. I don't know, so if you remember.
It was a surprise.
I don't remember the Congress campaign being that Sonia Gandhi is I mean, no, I don't remember her being the face of the Congress in any significant way. And in fact, later someone has said that it is she who ousted Kesri and not the other way around. It really depends on how old you are. When I was in Newstrack, there was this very famous AICC session. I don't know whether you remember.
I remember.
When Kesri took over the Congress, Sonia was so upset that she got up and she walked out because the Congress office and her residence were fairly close.
Kesri was treasurer, I think.
Yeah, he was treasurer. And then she just left because how she was bulldozed in that meeting. About 8-10 people followed, tried to get her in. And Kesri didn't tried to really sincerely get her back. And so a lot of people whose memory only starts from 2004 onwards say, oh, when did that happen? Beta, the world didn't start when you were born. There was a world before that also, which you may have been a choosa, chugoing dana. This goes on to some jokers who on Twitter said, oh, this never happened. Sonia ousted. I was like, beta, usse pehle bhi Congress thi. So anyway, and of course, someone could disagree, but Sonia was not the Atal of the BJP or the Modi of the...
For sure. I think even Atal was not the Modi in that sense because of so many things. Social media, everything. So it wasn't a presidential style election. But I do think Sonia, by virtue of being the leader of opposition, by simply the way she attacked the whole India Shining thing, went from, campaign to campaign, and the motley crew of tall Congress leaders around her were pretty much, I think, the face of that election. Anyway, Priyank says, Abhi, being the subject matter, just congratulating him on finally being the apparent lefty WhatsApp uncle without WhatsApp. You conveniently forget that it's your subscriber base that is more educated and apply the same logic to the larger population. You truly are the editorial elite detached from the ground. For the degree-fied Dumbo middle class, the next central figure of Indian polity, even if hated, will be Raga in post-Modi world. I didn't understand this.
Even I didn't understand.
The next central figure of Indian polity, even in unfortunate
will be Raga.
Truth.
I am not sure.
But also, you didn't support Raga, did you?
No, I didn't support Raga. I think this is because, to many, it's, or maybe they seem that I was too kind to Raga.
Abhi means Abhi, you?
Abhi probably.
Abhi being the subject matter.
Maybe me.
Oh, I have no idea. Yeah, Abhi is you only.
No,
Priyank, we are confused.
But Priyank, the one thing that I will say is that, and this is where Modi Shah's politics, they understand, their insight into the Indian public mind is astute. Why they think Arvind is the most dangerous out of all the opposition leaders. And that is because Arvind has a pan-India acceptability that neither does Mamta nor does Stalin. You see, Mamta is very Bengali and Stalin is very Tamil, and they get the only person who can, appeal to Gujarat, appeal to parts of North, appeal to parts of South. Arvind doesn't have that he's a Bengal, and that is why he's the bigger danger. So in my view, that's the only thing Raga has going for him, that he has this, he's not seen as as one part, whereas just because of their overall personalities, how they talk, etc., Mamta and Stalin are, though in sheer numbers, they command a bigger, slice of the population, bigger seat share, etc., than Kejriwal or, many others. But that whole pan-India-ness, which is a North bias, is what makes him, and no, I don't think Raga will be the rallying point anytime soon.
So Chandrasekhar has the same point, saying that Sitaram Kesri, Sonia Gandhi was nobody in 2000. So he's basically saying that you said that she was nobody in 2004 elections and Sitaram Kesri had sidelined her. But the fact is, Kesri was removed as Congress president in March 1998. Sonia was Congress and UPA president in 1998. And she says, while most political experts predicted NDA victory in 2004, it was also common knowledge that at that time, if UPA won, Sonia would be PM. Nevertheless, I agree with the overall point made by Abhinandan and Raman that it's not presidential style election on who will be PM until 2014.
Chandrasekhar, I don't agree with that, because, I don't know whether, I don't know which book or article I got this from, but basically, the kids insisted that Sonia will not become PM. She will not take over because they were too scared of losing her as well. They had lost their grandmother.
Neerja's book.
Yeah, Neerja's book said this, right?
Rahul basically threw a fit according to her.
Now, this doesn't add up for me. If UPA winning was a possibility that was discussed and it had been decided that if she wins, Sonia will be PM, then why did she not become PM? I mean, then if that was what was the rallying point, so Rahul Gandhi woke up, then, oh, Mama, you cannot become. And then she said, okay, I will not become. I mean, you're saying that all this was decided, and at the end when they won, then she said, no, I will not become today. They didn't expect it. And which is why at that time they had to find a prime minister. So it doesn't add up. Like, both contradict each other. If it was decided that she will become, then why did she not become? If Rahul had to dig his heels in, wouldn't he have dug his heels in earlier? Or they were sure they would not win. In which case, my point is right, that she was nobody.
In fact, all the predictions had gone
Nobody
wrong.
to nahi keh sakte.
No, I'm not saying that she was. I'm just saying that both can't be true. Both can't be true, that it had been decided that she will be PM.
She did
And then
not
she-
steer Congress to victory. That's all we are trying to say. Congress won. She was not so
The face,
instrumental.
yeah.
She was not so instrumental. She wasn't the face.
It wasn't an expected victory. What I'm saying is that all
should
I'm
get
saying is
And
someone
after that, yes, Sonia's ascendancy happened after
yeah,
that.
10 years.
In 10 years, she became the supreme leader.
2004 to 2014,
Yeah.
she became a star. She was not a star before that. Yeah,
Yeah, I guess it's not comparable to today, but I do think that leadership was, our basic point of argument was the cohesive force of opposition, which Sonia provided versus what Rahul.
No. My basic thing was, it started off from, you take the media away, Modi is also no one. Like you said, now that there is no alternative. I said there is no alternative narrative is something that the BJP has created. It is not a robust argument to replace someone. I say to take the media away, Modi will not have this image for 1 year. He will be laughed at as much as Rahul is. And the example I gave was that Sonia was not, I'm not talking about her being instrumental. There are two things. You can be instrumental in taking something to success because you have created such a good structure of the organization. One is that you're the superstar who wins the election. Arvind doesn't run the party. So other people are instrumental in the structure. But he's the superstar. Sonia was never the superstar who would get you votes, is what I'm saying. The media creates Modi's image. That is.
Right. Yes.
Okay, Somraj says, I think it's foolish from Manisha, who blames Rahul Gandhi for everything wrong with the opposition. In terms of moral conscience, he's the only one left. Manisha lives in the media world having privileges where they still believe he's Pappu, a name carefully caricatured by the likes of Arnab and gang. It's sad that people need leaders who just spew shit regardless of the venom it carries with it. It was pathetic, just like the Bengal election coverage in 2021.
I think Manisha thinks that he's too good for politics.
Somraj Mukherjee is very upset.
एक और ने करा है कि in connection with Manisha's view of the opposition, politicians displaying eloquence and intellect and opposition leaders of any significance have their images tarnished, targeted relentlessly. Rahul is a Burberry endorsing Pappu. Tharoor is hoity-toity. Mahua is Louis Vuitton totting bong. Didi is an appeaser of Muslims. Regional parties cannot get relief funds or even pass bills. Total disregard for democratic principles and morality of the bullies that run India while ruining every institution has made it impossible for any opposition leader to be heard. And even when leaders do emerge, they have to sell their Hinduness by chanting hymns and denouncing surnames. If my bigoted, mandir-loving, gullible, idiotic nation does surprise us in 2024, it will not be due to voiceless, powerless, moneyless opposition, but owing to the hubris of 56-inch man. Firstly, I don't think there's anything morally conscious, whatever, about losing and not learning from your mistakes. Rahul Gandhi doesn't want to be the president, but we all know that no decision in the party happens without him. He's effectively in a position where you can have, defeat after defeat, lose elections that are there for the winning, but never take any, credit, blame for it. So I don't see how that's morally superior. I mean, it's just unprofessional.
I don't think that is the context. They're saying that the moral superiority is not on that. I think it is because he takes uncompromising stands, and I have heard this articulated from a lot of people, including Lalu. The only other person I've heard is that
against the RSS
on issue of secularism, which for many people is the foundation of everything. It is more important in the hierarchy of things.
Yes.
On these two things, the only people who have continued to attack Modi and Shah are Rahul and Lalu Yadav. I'm not a fan of either, but I think it's true. On that, he has been uncompromising, and even people who like the Congress, even from people within, acknowledge many people within the Congress were scared to attack Modi because they thought un par ED aa jayegi, because everybody has killed. The only person who did not give a shit was Rahul.
And Lalu also, yes.
He went at Modi. Lalu went at Modi even after arrested.
I think Lalu was way superior in terms of his
so that is the
attack of the RSS and politics.
That is the conscience that they're talking about. I mean, but on the thing about, him being criticized, I do think he's criticized the most. But again, it is because of the pop culture aura that is created. Like I said last time, the kind of bloopers Mr. Modi has done, he would be as much of a laughing stock as anybody else.
Yes.
In fact, more.
Yes.
It is just that no one has the guts. Like, for example, I mean, many people may not want to believe her. Maybe we should investigate. Supriya Srinate, that's how you pronounce her name, right? When she showed that ad that is being, that they said every newspaper refused to carry, which is about the corruption, the quid pro quo of Modi. These guys are taking out all sorts of ads against the opposition. But the newspapers are not willing to take out an ad against it. People do not want to share. If I make a montage of Modi's bloopers and you put it in a group, see how many forward it. Not because they don't agree with it, they're scared to.
Also, one thing on this Pappu thing, when you do meet people, apart from the real BJP bugs that you meet at rallies and like staunch Modi supporters, even an average voter that may not be, I'm talking about like centrist voters who 10 years ago voted for Congress, या हम जन्मजात कांग्रेसी हैं और अब बीजेपी को वोट करते हैं, अब मोदी पसंद है, पप्पू इतना कोई नहीं बोलता है. They have many other criticisms of the Congress, but I think Pappu is a specifically very committed BJP voter that will get into it. The average view is that we don't know what he stands for, that he's not a seasoned politician, and I think there is some merit to that considering his political career over the last, or utterances, or political positioning from, last 3 years. I don't think that's...
I think what I think is that he's just not a full-time politician. That is the most robust and valid criticism. But we have many letters left. We will leave those for next time because we are out of time. So hold your emails for a week and after that let them through because we have about 5 or 6. So unless you have something very specific to contribute to the discussion today, just hold your mail for a week so that we can finish these because we have some very good articulate mails left. But we have almost touching 2 hours and I still have to take the recommendations. So let us wind up this Hafta with another appeal. Please pay to keep news free, contribute. Your recommendations. Manisha, let me start with you.
So a piece in Financial Times by John Reed and Andy Lynn. In charts, Narendra Modi's welfare freebies offer an election boost. I think it's a very good piece. Because Azam Khan has been in news. Not Azam, because Mukhtar Ansari has been in news and there's been a lot of debate about why he was eulogized. There's an excellent profile by Patrick French on him, what he was like as a leader, his popularity, what he stood for. I think that should really be read, especially today because it's so polarized. And one more thing, you go. I'll give you, there's one more recommendation.
So I have 2 recommendations. One is our, the turncoats is the most unique feature of this election. And there's so many of them. And despite the anti-defection law, and we don't know whether we should, they are morally corrupt or they are ethically corrupt. We don't have any idea about them. So we just leave it to the people. What we are going to do, we are going to come out with a series and call out these turncoats. Like in the phase 1, there are 18 turncoats contesting the election. So we have given 4 today. And every day we are going to come
That's
4.
Interesting. Good
and
concept.
Then phase 2, phase 3. So this is how we are going to, work on this turncoats. Everything in very briefly, I mean about 350 words, 400 words on each turncoat. And the second is my recommendation for a movie which was nominated for Oscars and I think had won the best supporting actress award also, The Holdovers. Beautiful movie. It is on the Prime Video. This is about, a convent school where some students who could not go to their house, so they had to stay back in the hostel. So there's a teacher, very strict teacher. So it's a story relationship between that student and the teacher. Beautiful movie.
The other piece I wanted to recommend was because of this whole Rahul thing. There's a piece in the Indian Express by Kapil Komireddy. Dear Rahul Gandhi, a big share of the blame for India's authoritarian slide will have to be shouldered by you. I think this is broadly what I was trying to articulate. So read it and we can discuss this maybe again. But I think while we discuss everything that's wrong with the Modi government, we need to also think about whether we have the opposition we deserve right now and what sort of opposition is the principal national opposition party throwing at us. And tough times, I think, require like more gumption. And I'm not sure if Rahul is providing us that right now, especially in the current times.
So I have 2 recommendations. Both are, not both. One is a pat on the back to us. It is a column by R Rajagopal in the Telegraph online, Keyboard Guerrillas. It talks about how the legacy media has failed India and how they refuse small outfits such as the News Minute, Scroll and Newslaundry, who are the real journalists keeping things as, you know, as accurate as possible. So please read that and then forward it to as many people as possible, and also subscribe while you're at it. And the second is, lots of stories have been done on electoral bonds, including by the team sitting here, not me, them. The Hindu today has a piece, 33 loss-making firms donated electoral bonds worth 582 crores. 75% went to BJP. And there's an analysis of the 45 companies that donated electoral bonds. Now, they haven't been able to get to right at the end of the source, but it is, I'm sure there are about 7 layers. They've reached layer 2, which is reports like this take time, energy, effort. So I appreciate and value such reports, which is why I'm recommending it. And on that note, I would like to thank our sound recordist, Anil Kumar, our producer, Aryan, and our panelists, Raman and Manisha. And I would like to thank you in advance if you are contributing to the NL Sena project, because expenses for the next 2 months are going to be immense. We have people traveling how many states, sir?
Many. Even in Northeast. We are going to Northeast.
Are you serious? Okay,
Yes,
but
yes,
you should, I guess. You
yes.
can't. Okay. Chalo, ab jo hai so hai. Help us pay the bills. Contribute. Click on the subscribe button. Nahi to hamara to ye haal hoga. Journalism at Newslaundry is powered by the public. Because when the public pays, the public is served. Visit newslaundry.com/subscription and pick a payment plan of your choice. Pay to keep news free and independent. Your future, and indeed the future of democracy, depends on it.